Here at Fit for a King, digitizing is one of the most important processes in getting finished, good-looking product to the customer. Two of the most important things in doing good digitizing are push and pull and pathing of the logo. Let's take a look at pushing and pull. This logo here, fairly simple. We're going to zoom in. This column here is going to be affected by pushing and pulling in what capacity? Well, the ends of these columns right here are going to push out and the sides of the columns are going to pull in. In the same respects, the E is effectively going to shrink because the entire edge of that satin stitch is the edge of the column where it wants to pull in. So what's going to happen? That E is effectively going to get smaller, and this band of the R here is going to get taller and narrower. So what happens when those two things occur? The letter heights start to get a little bit wonky. So when you see a digitized logo like this, a file or a true view, you want to actually see these letter heights look off. That's telling you that when it sews out, it's going to look accurate. Let's talk a little bit about pathing. Why is pathing important? Imagine the most simple design, which is just two basketballs and an outline around each basketball. Every stitch has tension on it, which means that it's affecting everything else around it. This is constant, it always happens. Doesn't matter what type of garment it is or where you're doing it. So we sew this basketball first, and then we sew this basketball second. Well, what happens to that first basketball when we sewed it, the second one out? It's pulling it over. Now, if we come back and put the outline on it, the software has no way of knowing that the basketball is moved and the outline is actually going to misregister. And that outline is also affecting the second basketball, which is going to very slightly pull it in, not as much as the fill, but it's still going to move it, and it's going to cause misregistration on the second basketball. So how do we combat that? We're going to fill that basketball in, we're going to outline it, and then we're going to fill a second basketball in, and we're going to outline it. We're less concerned about the number of color changes than we are about the misregistration. Misregistration is the devil that we're fighting every day, and this is one of the ways that we fight it. All right, if we back out to the entire logo here, we're more sensitive to the registration on the upper section here because we have a column going around it. We can't tolerate any misregistration. If that yellow pokes out at all, outside of the red, you're going to see it. If we get any gapping in there and we have garment showing through, you're going to see it. We can't tolerate any misregistration there. We can tolerate more misregistration on the lettering down here, especially if we're compensating properly for the pushing and the pulling. All right, so I'm going to run through this logo here and show you how I pathed it. We're going to start with the lettering down here because we're less sensitive to the misregistration. And then we're going to do this large filled in section here, and we're going to immediately outline it in the next color. Notice how we're not going to go up here and do this section before we do the outline first. Once we've filled in this area, we want to outline it immediately afterwards. Let's go back to that section again and take a look at a secondary thing that we want to do. Let's get up to this large fill here. And notice that we have a nice underlay underneath here. It's going the opposite direction of the fill stitch. That's going to help to contradict that pushing and pulling, which also occurs in the fill stitch. Not just in satin stitches, it occurs in every single stitch that happens on a garment. All right, so nice tatami fill stitch. We also have a nice outline edge run stitch here. The edge run just helps it, the fill achieve itself all the way to the very end so the satin can come back and cover it up nicely. Let's go to the end of the section here. We outline it, next. And then the next thing we're going to do is come up to this last section here, which requires very little registration here. One of the last things we did was the outline, so we feel assured that this column is going to come in and line up properly there and there. Having a basic understanding of registration and pushing and pulling and pathing on a logo will help you communicate better with your digitizer what you can do to make that logo look better or to deal with the problems.